Good evening and welcome back to yet another exciting BA session. Let's go ahead and initiate the review within the segment. Can somebody please unmute and talk about the principles of agile methodology? The question is, can somebody talk about the principles of agile methodology?
Yes, sure. People with agile methodology, individuals are and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documents, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, res- responding to change over following a plan.
Uh, I need you to talk more.
Got it, sir.
You need to improve a lot, and you need to improve. You're good at presentations. I need more stuff.
Naveen, did you got my answer?
And the way you present is very good. You're already there. All you need to do is put some stuff on your.
Naveen, did you got my answer?
Yes, looks like there was some background noise.
No, not from me. They are someone else.
No problem. Alright, anyway, that brings us to the conclusion of our review for the evening.
All right.
And I will give you 3 points for that.
Thank you.
And your assignment, 10 user stories, was due today. And I'll just give you the stats in a moment. Okay. Do you have any questions about your assignment? Any of you?
Not really.
Okay, good. So if you don't have any questions, no problem. And these are your submission statuses here. As you see, only 6 people or 7 people completed their assignment and everybody else is at delayed status. Let's go ahead and talk about rational unified process. So what is rational unified process? RUP. It's a very famous methodology, and RUP is very popular across the industry. It was developed by Rational Software and it eventually was acquired by IBM in 2003. So 94% of the Fortune 850 use rational e-development solutions. The reason is simple. They don't know what they want, but they're very sure what they don't want. They don't want overhead. They don't want lack of processes. So for these reasons, companies chose to go with RUP because it provides a disciplined approach to assigning tasks and responsibilities within a development organization. Also, the goal is to ensure the production of high quality software, which is again the goal of every agile family of methodologies. So what is RUP about? It is about successful software development. There are 3 central elements that will support RUP. What are those 3 elements? Number 1, underlying set of philosophies and practices. See, within the RUP, it has various phases. It has various tasks, various activities, and it will tell who has to do what. Also, it has a process model and an associated content library. Okay, what do you mean by associated content library? See, when you talk about rational unified process or rational methodology or RUP methodology, you don't just talk about the methodology alone, but we will be considering RUP with the processes and also with the suite of software. So there are a variety of software: Rational Requisite Pro, which is a requirements management tool; Rational Doors, another requirements management tool; Rational Rows, ClearCase, Test Manager, ClearQuest. So previously, probably from 2004, 2005 onwards, enterprises that employed RUP methodology also had these rational suite of software. They used to purchase licenses. They used to have these enterprise-wide licenses because they were web-based applications. So if they want to do the requirements, they will be using Requisite Pro or Doors. If they want to do modeling, they will be using Rows. If they want to handle their changes, configuration, or any incidents and service requests, they'll be using ClearCase. If they want to perform testing or handle the test cases, execute the test results, they'll be using Rational Test Manager. ClearQuest for defect tracking. That was the scenario up until 2008. But after economy started to crash or collapse, organizations moved away from rational software. The reason is simple. The license fees was huge. It was not beneficial for the organization in terms of its total cost of ownership or in terms of the implementation cost, project implementation cost, to employ this methodology along with this software. So what they did was, from 2008 onwards, they customized RUP. Again, as you know, every organization will customize their own methodology. Will customize existing methodologies. And they customized RUP, and then they started using alternate solutions, which are pretty much cheaper versions, or which are pretty much free software. So for example, if you have a template of your own, you can even do MS Word. You can do it in Excel sheet, or you can do it in some SharePoint or some other requirements management tools. For modeling, you can use Visio. You can use Enterprise Architect. You can use so many other Star UML. There are so many other open source tools. There are hundreds of tools for configuration and change management: Jira, Atlassian, Peregrine Systems, ISCM, IBM Tivoli, and so many other small names. You can also use HP Quality Center. Previously it was Mercury Quality Center, but now HP purchased, so it's HP Quality Center, which is a popular tool, or LoadRunner, Quick Test Pro. There are so many solutions to manage your testing activities, which also contain some of the defect management modules. So organizations started to move away from these different types of applications, from rational applications or rational suite of software, which was extra cost for the projects. However, the point about the associated content library is rational software has this process and the knowledge built into it. For example, let's say if you're using Rational Requisite Pro. Rational Requisite Pro software, you don't need to know what an SRS would contain. You don't need to know what a vision document would contain or a project charter would contain. It is configured in a way that it will pop up some windows, ask you to enter the functionalities, ask you to enter the flows, ask you to enter the non-functional requirements, ask you to identify the data elements. And then these software can generate artifacts based on the information that you input. You don't have, and the final end product will look like just like your SRS, which is what you did. That is one advantage. The second advantage is because these are all collaborative. Let's say if you and multiple BAs are working on the same requirement artifact. So you're working on one component, another BA is working on a different component. Both of you can simultaneously work in your areas. You can lock that functionality, you can lock that scope area, and then you can update your work. And then others can also update their work. And then eventually they can be merged. And somebody else can see what you've done. If there's a change, they can propose a change. So they are collaboration tools. And then you can also trace various items. For example, if you can enter your business requirements, and then if you're entering your functional specifications, which is what you've done, you can map them or trace them within the application to the business requirements or to the product requirements. So these were all the associated content library. They had all these templates built into the application. But if you were to take this program before 2008, it was a guarantee or it was a mandatory aspect for you to be familiar and knowledgeable with the requisite pro and do's. Today, I don't see many jobs, or I see a very insignificant number of jobs asking for people with requisite pro or do's knowledge or experience, because everybody is using alternate versions of these. For example, I told you about a tool called version 1. The other day we did take a quick look at it. And then within which they will create user stories. They'll create product backlogs. Right? So there are so many alternate tools that organizations are using, and pretty much rational suite of software, requisite pro, do's, etc. are not used in the industry. So that is what is the associate content library. And the third one is underlying process definition language. See, every other methodology talks about a process, set of activities, tasks, deliverables, the type of document that you should have. But RUP is the only methodology that proposes that a project deliverable should also contain some diagrams. You should have a pictorial representation or depiction. And because of that feature also, RUP was very popular. That's where your UML diagrams came up. That's how the concept of UML evolved. Unified Modeling Language. Okay, so we will anyway take a look at it after we are done with RUP. So there are 4 phases of RUP. What are those 4 phases? Inception, elaboration, construction, and transition. Inception, elaboration, construction, and transition. If you have to plot these 4 phases with time on x-axis and then with resources on y-axis, inception would require a certain number of resources and a certain amount of time. Elaboration would require a little more amount of resources and a little more time than inception. Construction would require more amount of resources and time than inception and elaboration, and then transition may require relatively lesser number of resources than construction, but more than inception and elaboration, and relatively lesser time, probably about the same as inception. Okay. So my question, actually I have 2 questions here. I want one of you to unmute and answer my questions. When you answer, please try to justify your answer. Number 1, which is the most costliest phase of RUP and why? Which is the most costliest phase of, which is the costliest phase of RUP and why?
I think the costliest would be construction phase.
Why?
Because this period, like, it's a longer period, and if you go, if you think it's in US, the labor cost would be higher. You're going to hire more people.
You are paying a lot of resources for a longer period of time throughout the project. Therefore, that is the costliest phase. So let me go and award you a point for your response. And my second question is, what are these 4 phases analogous to? Are these 4 phases analogous to something that we discussed earlier in our classes? Inception, elaboration, construction, and transition.
They're based on unified process of doing some kind of project, completing it up.
So what are these 4 phases analogous to? Are these 4 phases analogous to something that we discussed? What do these 4 phases resemble? Do they resemble anything that we discussed? Yes, no, don't know.
They resemble with a little bit with the waterfall methodology. Because same thing is with the waterfall methodology. You have like certain steps to move to the next step.
These 4 phases resemble general phases of an IT project, where you will be doing requirements, design, development, and testing. Did we read that in our earlier classes? Did we cover that topic? Requirements, design, development, and testing. But if we are employing RUP methodology, we should be using these terms. Don't say requirement, design, development, and testing. Use the word inception, elaboration, construction, and transition. Anyway, that brings us to an assignment. The assignment is, there are a variety of artifacts in our portal. And what I want you to do is, I want you to be able to go to templates. And once you are on templates, click on requirements phase. And then I want you to download business requirement document, product requirement document, functional specification document. Please make a note of these 3. BRD, FSD, and PRD. Not functional requirement document, it's functional specification document. I want you to download these 3 artifacts, and I want you to be able to review those 3 artifacts and then come up with a matrix where you are identifying the similarities and differences. Okay, please identify the similarities and differences. Just to give you an example, this is what I am looking to see at the end of it. So there's a BRD, FSD, and PRD, right? So come up with the similarities and then differences, if you have any difference for that. Clear? And I already posted instructions for that.
Can you show that thing again?
If I show it, what is it that you will do? You can just
No,
copy it.
I just want to. Huh? No. I just want, if you can show it right now, because I want to see the structure. That's it.
Structure is draw an Excel sheet.
Okay.
Like this. Let me show you. Within an Excel sheet, draw a table like this. And identify similarities for PRD, FSD, and then BRD.
So then make another box.
Differences.
Okay, another box for differences.
Yes.
All right, that's what I want to know. That's it.
Okay.
All right.
I already posted instructions for that. They're available. Okay. So this is due by Monday, by the way. Please mute your lines if you're not speaking, so that there is no background noise. Thank you. So let's go ahead and talk about inception. What happens in inception phase? You would assess the need in an inception phase. What do you mean by assessing a need? And then, see, every organization will have a specific set of needs, right? Every organization will have a specific set of needs. You have to identify what those needs are. So let me go to planning phase templates. Let me open a business case template. So when you assess a need, you will create a business case or a business context document in RUP methodology. If it was some other methodology, you probably would just do a high-level BRD, or you would do a high-level scope document or a vision document. But in a business case document, you'd identify the executive summary. What is it that we are trying to address? What is the issue? What is the anticipated outcome after you solve this issue? What is the recommendation? What is the justification as to why you chose to do this project? What are the assumptions, business assumptions? What are the limitations? So these would be your source documents. Realistically, I should have given you, each one of you, a business case or a business context for each of your case studies, because this is where you would lift some information off of for your artifacts. And then you would identify the governance team members. Who is a governance team member? Governance team members in general are senior resources like managers, vice presidents, directors, who would be able to make some decisions. Okay, so they could be from the business side and from the IS or IT side. And then you would identify the problem statement for that. What is the problem statement? What is it that we are trying to address? Are we trying to be efficient? Are we trying to increase productivity? Are we trying to reduce the costs? Are we trying to increase the revenues? What is your problem statement? And then you would identify the stakeholders or your customers and some description about who they are, the processes that you would use, and some of the description of those processes. And then you would understand the current technology environment. What is the current software? What is the current hardware? And then you would give some description of the project overview, project description. What are the goals and objectives of this project? What is it that this project should be accomplishing for this organization? What are the performance measurements? How would you gauge the project's outcome? And then what are any assumptions, constraints pertaining to any of this project? And then what is your proposed technology environment? So earlier you talked about your current technology environment. Now you're talking about your proposed technology environment. What is the proposed software? What is the proposed hardware? And then major project milestones. What are the milestones? Is completion of requirements phase deemed as a milestone? Is completion of the approvals of requirements artifact deemed as completion of requirements phase? Or is completion of design deemed as another milestone? Or would you like to have sign off on the design specification? Then would you consider it as a milestone? So different organizations may have different tolerance levels, different processes. So identify all the milestones and establish a high-level target date. And then they would do some project evaluation. For example, here in this case, some statutory fulfillment. For example, if a project is being done by a vendor or some implementation organization, let's say Cognizant, Infosys, Mahindra, L&T, TCS, Wipro, Satyam, Deloitte and Touche, KPMG, HP, Emphasis, Accenture, right? All these are implementation, CSC, Computer Science Corporation. All these are implementation partners besides several thousands of other small companies. So what is the penalty, or what is, how will they compensate for the losses? So let's say, for example, in an organization, if let's say a project is not done on time, it is not delivered, and there is a business criticality, and because of this, business lost some revenues. So what is the penalty for that? In my current organization, HP is one of the vendors. And a couple of years ago, HP actually ended up paying huge fines because they failed to deliver what they were supposed to deliver by the time they were supposed to deliver it. Therefore, they had to cough up a lot of money in return to the client. So is there anything like that? Is there any mandatory items pertaining to the project? What are the plans, goals? What are the relationships with the project? For example, other projects may be happening. Right? Other projects may be happening. So they may be achieving some goal. Are our goals in alignment with those other project goals? Are we aligned strategically to support the overall organizational goals? And then they will be doing some financial analysis, understanding the cost estimates. So here you see this template. It's only a high-level template. For an individual to perform some cost estimates, they will use different types of spreadsheets or worksheets or applications. For example, I have created one of these worksheets recently called Budget Management Worksheet, which was a customized template. Pretty exhaustive, very elaborate. It had about 10 to 15 tabs in the Excel sheet, very complex, and generally it is not accessible by number one, consultants. Number two, people at analyst level. It is supposed to be done only by senior managers and directors level type of people. But because my senior manager knew that I could handle it and he wanted me to do it, he actually gave it to me, and then I actually did all that budgeting, all the estimations for a particular project because we were doing a business case. So also, are there any identifiable risks? If yes, what is the rating for that? And can somebody quickly give me a response here in the chat window? How would you calculate risk?
Risk is calculated by that percentage or minus loss, probability minus loss.
How is risk calculated? How do you measure risk?
It's probability into expected loss.
Probability into expected loss. So let's go ahead and award JSV a point for that. So you have to calculate the risk, identify all the risks, identify the respective ratings for that. And then, are there any alternatives? Let's say if we don't do this project in the status quo, right? Why did we not just stay like that? Why did we have to take up this project? Is there an alternative option one, option two? If yes, why? What is the reason for not selecting them? In fact, this is a nice Word document, but I created several presentations in PPT formats, pretty much with similar information, different options. So it was called as business justification. And then we took that and then presented it to our vice presidents, chief information officer, CIO, etc. And then they finally released funding because they were multi-million-dollar projects. However, you can have a comprehensive document like this, but to do a presentation, you would like to have a simple set of slides, maybe like 30, 40 slides with graphics and images. And then also they try to determine the methodology that they will choose. Should we use waterfall? Should we use spiral? What agile? Should we use RUP? Should we use something else? And the reason for selecting that methodology. And then they would have allocated some ratings earlier to all of these factors which we discussed: statutory fulfillment, strategic alignment, impact analysis, financial analysis, risk consideration, etc. And then they will also have some scoring. Not every organization will do all this. This is probably specific to one or two organizations. So in a business case document, you would try to understand the objectives, you try to understand the current environment, you try to understand the proposed environment, you try to understand the milestones, you try to identify the high level picture, your stakeholders, governance council. That is something that you would do as part of your assessing the need. Once you assess the need, then you would try to scope the system. What do you mean by scoping the system? That is when you would do your business context, or that is when you would do your vision document or scope document. Let's go ahead and look at a vision document. So let's go to templates again. Let's go to project management artifacts, and then let's look at project scope document. Okay, maybe. So this is one example of a project scope document. It can be a simple document. So it may contain simple information. What is the scope of this project? Give a quick description. What are the deliverables of this project? What is the acceptance criteria? So when will the users accept the project? When can you say that the project is ready to be accepted? What is acceptance criteria? When you have all the features and functionalities covered, when you can report that all the defects have been solved or zero defects, or when you can report that the system is in operational mode, and if you can prove that it is indeed in production and in operational mode. Are there any exclusions? Are there any constraints, assumptions? So these information will serve as inputs into your requirements specification document. Constraints, assumptions, etc. And then you may have to elaborate on those things. Let's also look at another template called a business case template or business context. For example, here is a vision document. Okay, and here within this vision, what is the background? What is the business opportunity? What are the customer needs or market needs? What are the business risks? What is the vision of the solution? So earlier you identified a problem statement, but now you're trying to identify the vision for that problem statement. What are the major features? What are the assumptions and dependencies? Are there any limitations for the scope? What is the scope of initial release? What is the scope of subsequent releases? What are the limitations and exclusions for any of these scope items? And then who are your stakeholders? What are the priorities of your project? What are the priorities of your project? For example, in some organizations, for some of their projects, schedule would be a priority. Okay, let's say if you are in a commercial organization, schedule is a priority. They would say, you know what, whatever you want to do it, but make sure that you are finishing it by so and so time. For some others, features are a priority. For some other organization, the features are a priority. Okay, and then just a quick check here. Is my screen not visible? Are you able to view my screen?
Visible. It's visible. My screen is not visible. It's all blue. I can see the mouse pointer, but not the screen.
You may want to exit and re-enter. So are features a priority? Is quality a priority? For example, if you are in an R&D department, or if you are in, let's say, some meeting which is governed by regulations, then quality is utmost priority for them. Staff, in some organizations, they say, you know what, you just have to do your project or complete your project with these type of people, with full-time employees. Or sometimes they may say that cost is a priority. You have to be able to finish it within so and so budget. So what is the priority? What are the drivers? What are the constraints? What is the degree of freedom? Is there any leeway? And then also identifying the operating environment. Do you have teams dispersed across the globe? Because how would they communicate? How would they talk and interact? What are the applications that you will use? Are there any supporting tools or software that you would use? Who will have access to what? How is data protected? How is project information protected? What are the types of meetings that you would have? So some of those examples could be part of your operating environment. So anyway, in establishing the scope activity, they would create this business context or a vision or a scope document. And then they will capture the core project requirements, which is part of your requirements gathering activity. Once the requirements are in, then they will be doing the initial viability and feasibility analysis. Is this even doable? If yes, how can we accomplish it? And who are the main focus in inception phase? A business owner, project manager, business analyst, technical architect, quality assurance lead, technical delivery manager. So these are the people that would be important during the inception phase. If the project does not pass this milestone called the life cycle objective milestone, you can either cancel this phase or redo this phase to better meet the criteria. So we looked at a vision and scope document. They would create a project vision scope document. They would create a business case document. One of the things about methodologies and the practical scenarios is organizations may not necessarily create every document. At least I have not seen any project which contained both vision and then business case. You either have this or this. Okay, because some of the information is redundant. So they don't want to duplicate the effort. And then they will also identify a high-level risk register. Not a project level risk, but a high level initial risk with business risks, technical risks, which again can be part of your business case, or it could be part of your vision document as seen earlier. And then they will also create a glossary. Okay, they will also create a glossary sheet. Generally, they'll have a master glossary, but you can have glossary in each and every independent document as desired. And then they will initiate use cases. They will initiate use cases. So let us go ahead and talk about use cases. In my earlier classes, I mentioned that there are top 3 topics. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 3 top topics that if you want to be a BA, you should be very thorough with. Number 1 was different types of requirements. Okay, you should know what requirements are. If you don't know what requirements are, it's better not to be a BA. Number 2, and then number 3. Number 3 was methodologies, SDLC methodology, software development lifecycle methodologies. And we discussed several methodologies. So you should be thorough with those methodologies also. But the second most important concept is use cases. Use cases. If you don't know what use cases are, or if you don't understand what use cases are, I would say you better consider some other profession. Don't worry about becoming a business analyst. I have not seen any individual who was a successful BA or who was even a BA without the knowledge of use cases. Whether the organization uses it or not, that's a different story, but an individual who does not know what use cases are should not become a BA according to me. They will not become a BA. I can guarantee that much. So my point is use cases are very, 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 very important. And I want each one of you to pay 100% attention. Make sure that your screens are working. Make sure that your speakers are working and you are able to hear me well. Make sure that there are no distractions in the background. If you miss on use cases today, you will not be able to become a BA. That's my observation. Okay. So are there any questions until now, whatever we covered?
See, the problem is I'm able to hear you, but I'm not able to see the screen.
That's fine. I'm not necessarily indicating anything particularly to you or referring anything to you.
Okay.
I'm giving a general statement. When you do your interview, I can guarantee you one of the mandatory questions or one of the guaranteed questions is use cases. They will certainly ask you about use cases. Okay, so you better know what use cases are. So what are use cases? Let's go ahead and talk about it. Use cases represent a discrete unit of interaction between a user and a system, or the system and a system. It is also used to perform or achieve a goal. It will be triggered by an actor or another use case. It is a unit of distinct business functionality. And it is an abstract system functionality at a bird's eye view level. Okay. Put it in a parking lot for now. I'll come back and discuss that in a minute. So what is a use case? It is a discrete unit of interaction between a user and a system. What do you mean by discrete? Can somebody unmute and please give me the definition or understanding of discrete? What is discrete? What is discrete? Am I audible, by the way? Yes, no? Or you don't know? You have three options. What is discrete?
You're audible, but no blunders.
But you don't know the definition?
Yeah.
Discrete means separate.
Discrete means separate, distinct. Very good. Who is that?
Neha.
Okay. So remind me to give you a point. So let me go ahead and explain what discrete is. See, there are two representations on this slide. Number one, do you see these lines here that I've drawn? These red lines. This I'm calling set number one, set number two. Set number one, there are discrete lines. There are not connected lines. They are separated. But then the second picture here is it's a connected line. It's a continuous line. The opposite of discrete or antonym of discrete is continuous. Okay. So anyway, a use case represents a discrete unit of interaction. All right. Let's take a step back and then understand the different types of use cases. There are two types of use cases at a high level, and a lot of people don't know this. I myself did not know this when I started my career. I knew about this after a couple of years into my career. So what are those two types of use cases? Because I don't think there are books that will describe these two types of use cases, or not many people will separate them out. But it's actually good to know that there are two types of use cases. Number one, there are business use cases, and then there are system use cases. There are system use cases, business use cases and system use cases. Business use cases are functionalities that are described in form of a use case, but it's in business language at a very high level. But then system use cases are those use cases that are described in a detailed manner, that will describe the flow, that will describe the interaction. Those are system use cases. I want to ask a question. I want you to unmute and give me a quick response. We discussed this. As I indicated earlier in our sessions, going forward, I'll be picking up pace. Okay, number one. Number two, the reason is whatever we discussed previously is what we are discussing now, because everything is built on top of those foundational concepts. So I am automatically assuming that each one of you is already very thorough with our previous concepts, whatever we discussed in our previous class. It could be, whatever we discussed already, like risk calculation or methodologies or types of requirements or other things. So what are the various roles, or what are the various types of business analyst roles that could prevail, or that exist, I should say. In our very beginning class, maybe on day one or day two, or even in our demo, probably I would have given this information. There are different types of business analysts. Can you list who those two types of, or who those types of business analysts are?
System analyst.
And
System analyst.
yeah, somebody already mentioned that, right? But who is the other one? Who are how many types of BA roles do we have?
System analyst and data analyst.
So you're saying data analyst, that is not even a business analyst. And you're saying system analyst, that is not even a business analyst. Right? It's like this. Give some names of examples. So it's like this. If I'm asking, hey, give me some examples of vegetables. You're saying a laptop and a cell phone. Is there a connection? No. So
Management business analyst and IT business analyst.
Excellent. Very good. So Ranjit, please remember, I will give you a point. So IT business analyst and managing business analyst. But I want to take it a step further. Within IT business analysis, I also mentioned that there are two types of roles. Okay, I'll give you the number, two types of roles. Anyone remembers what those two types of roles are? I said in large organizations, that could be the case. In large organizations, that could be the case. So the two types of BA roles are client-facing business analyst, CFBA, and the other one is a ISBA, IS business analyst. Did we discuss this or did we not discuss this? So client-facing business analyst and IS business analyst. This is within the IT business analyst segment. I'm not talking about management. Forget about management business analyst. So what is client-facing business analyst? I was in a situation like this only in one of my projects. I was actually a client-facing business, or I'm sorry, I was actually a IS business analyst, and I was interacting with client-facing business analysts. So they would interact with the business user. They would interact with the business user, and they would get the requirements, and then they would give the requirements to me, and I would create specifications. But they would also create some requirement artifacts. They would create high-level BRDs, okay, and they would create business use cases which are at a high level. I would take them and then I would create system use cases and requirement specification documents. But 99% of the times that would not be the case. It happens only very often to a few people. In organizations, today a BA will have to do both of these tasks. You have to do both the CFBA job and also both the ISBA job. So in other words, you'll be creating business use cases and also system use cases. Or you'll be writing a business requirement document and you'll also be drafting a requirement specification like what you did. I know only one of my students actually ended up as a CFBA. After taking this training, she ended up as a client-facing business analyst for a healthcare organization in New York City. And she does not write these specifications or she does not do these system use cases. But she will just write business use cases and requirements at a high level. Because there is another ISBA who would do that. Okay. So anyway, these are the two types of use cases. However, if you know how to write system use cases, writing business use cases is not a big deal. Okay. So business use cases are abstracts, which will give you the system functionality at a bird's eye view level, while system use cases are detailed use cases. Okay. So let me go ahead and, so for example, this is an example of a business use case. Like if you want to buy a phone card, main scenario and then steps. And then there are alternate scenarios for that. Okay. But I think even this probably is not a great example for a business use case. But let me go ahead and do a use case for your benefit. Please make sure that you're able to see and understand everything very clearly here. This is extremely important. The use case is extremely important. So we have a use case template. So go to our templates folder and then go to requirements phase templates. And then the last button is called as use case template. What is a template, by the way? What is a template?
It's a skeletal of an artifact.
It's a skeletal document where you can populate information. Okay. So what would a use case contain? A use case will contain several things. There are several components of a use case. Let me go ahead and draft a use case for your benefit. Let's say UC001. Okay, use case name. Let me write a use case for login functionality. created by Naveen. Date created. What is today's date? August 1st. Okay. Actors. What do you mean by actors? People who would use the system are called as actors. People who would use the system are called as actors. So registered users would be your actors. Okay. Description. This use case will capture the information and flow of and the interactions between the system, between, let's say I'm writing use case for login functionality of naveenmail.com, okay, between naveenmail.com and a registered user for login functionality. Okay. Triggers. What do you mean by a trigger? See, rainfall is a trigger for mudslide. What do we mean by that? Something that initiates the action. What is the trigger for you to take this program? Wanting a job, right? So that's a trigger. So what will trigger? So user needing to access inbox. I'm writing a use case for my case study. Okay. Preconditions. What are the preconditions? System. Let me put it this way. Naveenmail.com must be up and running. So what if it is in maintenance mode or down mode or partial mode or offline mode or whatever? Then you cannot have this use case executed. So naveenmail.com must be up and running. Also, user's account should be active. See, I have some user IDs. Okay, I have a user ID with there is a application called email.com. I have created, as far as I remember, I think I created about 10 or 12 years ago. But I did not check that in the last 5-6 years. So I don't know if that is still existing or not. I have registered. You no doubt, but is my account active? I don't know. So that must be active for this use case to be executed. What are the post conditions? We'll come back to that. Put in a parking lot list. We'll come to post conditions in a minute, or after we are done with the use case, we'll come back and address the post. Normal flow. What do you mean by normal flow? See, if I am traveling from A to B, I'm traveling from A to B. If I need to travel from A to B, if I go in the straight line, whatever path, then it is called as a normal flow or basic flow or happy path. Okay. But let's say if I cannot go from A to B directly, but if I have to go from A to C and then from C to B, then this is called as alternate flow. Alternate flow. Let's say if I'm never able to go from A to B, not even in alternate option, then it is called as error or exception. We'll discuss that in a minute. So normal flow in a lot of organizations is also called as basic flow or happy path. Please make a note of this. Don't get confused when somebody says, hey, what is a happy path? Okay. So in normal conditions, when the system is up, when the user account is active, when everything is beautiful and wonderful, what should happen? User will open www.naveenmail.com in a browser. User shall enter valid user ID. User shall enter valid password. System, or let's put this, naveenmail.com shall validate or shall authenticate valid user ID and password. And then naveenmail.com shall take the user into inbox. So let's go and try doing that, okay? Let's say there is Yahoo Mail. And then let's say I'm entering my password. What happens? If I click on sign in, it will take me to my inbox. Okay? So that is what we mentioned here. But what about alternate flows? Alternate flows. What can happen in an alternate flow? That means we are not able to reach our destination in a straightforward manner. Then something is happening and we have to choose an alternate route. So what are the possibilities for alternate flow? So let's say scenario number 1. Okay. User shall open www.naveenmail.com in a browser. User shall enter invalid user ID. So scenario number 1. What is scenario number 1? Invalid user ID. And then user shall enter valid user ID. Naveenmail.com shall authenticate invalid user ID and valid password. Let us say user ID here. It's password. And then naveenmail.com. What happens? So let's say, I'm entering my incorrect username. Okay, let's say as opposed to, my actual username. Let's say I'm entering another character to make it incorrect. Okay. So, but I'm entering my actual password. What is happening here? Maybe it's a bad example. Okay. So I tried entering my valid or invalid user ID, but a valid password. And this is the message that I got. The username or password you entered is incorrect. So let me go ahead and do this. Shall authenticate invalid user and valid password shall display the following error message. The username you entered is incorrect. Right? Is there any other scenario besides this? Can somebody volunteer by unmuting and give me another scenario? Is there any other scenario or any other possibility?
Invalid password.
Sorry?
Invalid password.
Okay, so can you give me the steps for that?
Yeah, for invalid password, like it would be the same thing, just beside user ID, you have to go for the password. And the message will be user password is incorrect.
So that's why, I'm doing a copy paste job. You as a business analyst should be good with copy paste. If you want to really be successful, you should know how to do a good copy paste job. See? Okay. Scenario number 2. Any other scenarios that you can think of? Are there any other scenarios that you can think of for login functionality?
Yeah, sometimes you get like message of different location. If you go from like here to any other country and you try to log in over there, they'll ask you that is that you who are entering it? This happened with me.
For example?
For example, like I was using my college ID over here, and after that I went to India and I tried to log in over there. They asked me, are you the same person who is using that thing in US? So they want to make sure. Same thing like if you have invalid password or use like so the change of location, different country. So to make it clear, they tried it.
So what I want to do is I want to just expand it and valid password, invalid password, valid user ID, and invalid password. Okay. So one other scenario that I can think of. Yes. Can you think of any scenarios?
Blank field, no username, only password, and typing
How
in.
about invalid user ID and invalid password? Did it ever happen to you? For example, let's go to this one. So I'm adding invalid user ID, okay, and then incorrect password. Again, it's an issue, right? So that is one example or another scenario. For login functionality, what else can we have as your scenarios? Any other scenarios that you can think of? For example, I'm entering my user ID, my password. I'm doing that for a second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time. Oh, look what happened. After the sixth time, I got this captcha code, CAPTCHA, the security code, right? So invalid user ID for up to 5 times. I'm just writing 5 times because it's my application. I want to determine that business rule. Okay, so just do copy paste. For up to 5 times. And then what happens? Naveenmail.com shall authenticate the invalid user ID and password. And then naveenmail.com shall generate a security code and display it. Right? So isn't that a scenario? Now, when you generate security code, let's say the user now actually entered an accurate password and user ID and also the correct code. Then it will take them to the inbox. So we can do the same thing for invalid password for up to 5 times. I'm going to just copy and paste this as it is and change it appropriately. Okay. Are there any other scenarios that you can think of? So you all use login functionality day in and day out. So you entered incorrectly once, you entered the user ID incorrectly once, entered the password incorrectly once, and then entered the both of them incorrectly, then entered user ID incorrectly for 5 times and then 5 times password incorrectly. And then what else can happen after this? Are there any other scenarios? So for example, let's say somebody clicked on forgot username. Is that a possibility? Isn't that a part of login functionality? Scenario number 6. Forgot user ID. Let's say alternate email ID. So in how many ways can you retrieve your user ID if you forgot your user ID?
There are many ways. One of the way is on the time of creating email ID, they ask for your alternate email ID in case you forget the ones you're making. You can retrieve your ID by using your alternate email ID.
What is the other way? Or is there any other way?
Answering security question.
Excellent. So let's say user shall, can you give me some steps? Can somebody please prompt and give me some steps?
Like questions would be like, oh, you want the steps.
Are you asking for security questions?
Just give me steps so that I can draft the use case.
In the alternate email address.
As opposed to system, say Naveen mail. So now, because you're sending the alternate user ID to Naveen mail or to some other mail, like let's say this time it is a different ID. Okay. The user will be able to access the user ID on that email account and then come back and log in. Okay. Any other scenarios that you can think of? So forgot password. Right? Is that a scenario? Yes, no? Forgot password. Alternate email ID. So found the user to enter alternate email ID, and it shall validate alternate and it shall send the password reset link to alternate email ID. Yes or no? Any other scenarios? Are there any scenarios that you can think of? Please be quick. Don't waste your time. Am I audible? Okay, so what are the other scenarios?
I don't think any of that, because these the only things happen when you go for login.
How about forgot user ID, security responses?
You have two, so
So from the user to enter responses, enter security question responses, shall validate the security question responses. shall prompt the user to choose a new user ID after the validation. Right? Is that a possibility? Yes, no?
Yes.
Can you think of any other scenarios? Scenario number 9, forgot password for security responses. Right? So you can combine both of these things and then make it one scenario. You don't have to be so detailed. You can say, forgot user ID and password, security question. Forgot user ID and password, alternate link. Forgot user ID and password up to 5 times. Forgot user ID and password invalid 1 time. What else are there for you to consider? Are there any other scenarios that you can think of? Hmm? Yes, no?
Can it be like user ID gets locked?
Then what happens?
The user would not be able to enter for a particular period of time, like for 24 hours or something.
So that means the user is not able to reach the destination point. You're not able to travel from A to B. You're stuck.
Yeah.
But the definition of alternate flow is somehow you are able to reach your destination.
Okay. I mean, you say he'll be able to reach maybe delay of time.
It is not called as alternate flow. In fact, it is called as exception flow. That is what we are going to be doing in a minute, or actually now. Exceptions or error flows. So what are exceptions or error flows? Exceptions or error flows are scenarios that can pop up when there is an error condition, when there is no progress, when you cannot go further, when the user cannot continue with the business as usual. Then how should the system behave? So let's identify scenarios. Scenario number 1. So let's say I try to do this, okay, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, okay. I think in Gmail it has more tolerance. Guess what? We will have the same steps. User shall open naveenmail.com in a browser. User shall enter invalid user ID for up to, let's say, 20 times. Okay? User shall enter invalid user ID for Naveen Mail shall validate, or naveenmail.com shall validate the invalid user ID and valid password. You can add a step here. User shall enter. So each time you are entering a valid password but an invalid user ID. It will validate the invalid user ID and valid password. naveenmail.com. So there's a security code, right? Valid user ID, valid password, valid and valid security code. Shall lock the account for 48 hours and display the following error message. What is that error message? Your account has been locked for 48 hours. Please try later. Has it ever happened to you? You never had your account locked? Wow. In my previous batches, a lot of people said they actually had their accounts locked. I myself had my account locked a couple of times. Okay, so this is one scenario. What are the other scenarios that you can think of? Are there any other scenarios that you can think of? If yes, please go ahead and unmute and give me a response. So you can have a scenario where you can enter invalid password for 20 times. Right? That is another scenario. That is another scenario. Are there any other scenarios that you can think of?
Yeah, password and user ID both.
Okay, very good. Invalid user ID and invalid password. Shall enter invalid user ID for two. Actually, it doesn't make much sense because anyway, both of them are there. So the invalid user ID and invalid password. Okay. All right. So anyway, okay. What else is there? Is there any other scenario that you can think of? How about invalid security responses? Has it ever happened to you? It happened to me once. So you're asking the user to enter security responses, but what if they don't remember the security responses, and what if they enter invalid security responses? How are we going to handle that? Right? Is that a possibility? Yes, no, don't know.
You'll ask for another question.
So user shall open email.com in a browser. User shall enter invalid security question responses. System shall, or actually navinmail.com shall validate the invalid security question responses. Right? And then what happens? Navinmail.com will lock that means user is not able to go any further than this. User is not able to go any further than this. Navinmail.com shall lock the account for a period of 48 hours and display the following error message. What is the message? Your security question responses are incorrect and your account has been locked. Please retry again. Retry later after 48 hours. Let's say you are customizing the message this time a little bit. Any other scenarios that you can think of? Please be quick.
Can it be like the security box or the capture box is locked after several trials?
I mean, can you explain? I don't understand.
Yeah, the security box which we get after when we enter username and password after 2-3 times, we get X, Y, Z, P. That's a capture alphabet box.
Yeah. So what about that box?
If maybe if we are attempting several times for several times, maybe it will not let us go further.
You mean the box, the security code will not be displayed?
It will be displayed, but user can not be able to get it right for the first time. So he'll try a number of times.
I have not seen that scenario, so I'm not too sure about what you're specifying. But there can be another scenario that I'm familiar with. Invalid alternate email ID. Is that a possibility? So is that a possibility? Is that how it can display? So what else can we have? Is there any other scenario that you can think of? Let's say I'm trying for the very first time. Let's say I'm trying a user ID. Okay, I'm entering a password, my valid password. No. I think it's wrong. It's a bad example. I don't know why this is not even validating it. Is Yahoo having some issues? Looks like it. Anyway, what I want to demonstrate here is, let's say you are entering an ID that is not taken. Okay, you are entering an ID that is not taken. I don't know what happened to Yahoo Mail, but it looks like it is getting stuck. Okay. So MGNFL7. Your Yahoo account has been deactivated. I don't know whose account that is. See, what I'm trying to mention here is, you can have a scenario where you're trying to enter a user ID that is not taken. Okay, scenario number 6. User ID that is not taken. So user shall open www.naveenmail.com in a browser. And then user enters a non-registered user ID, and then naveenmail.com shall validate the user ID and display the following message. This user ID is not taken. Please click on new user registration. Okay. So typically, exceptional flows can lead you to other use cases. So here you don't have a user ID that is taken. And then when a user clicks on user registration, guess what? It is a new use case which will have its own basic flow, alternate flow, exception flows. Okay. And then includes. What do you mean by includes? See, there are two types of use case relationships. One is an included relationship. The other one is an extend relationship. What do you mean by include? Include relationship is one use case may include the functionality of another use case as part of normal process. For example, the relationship between money transfer use case and login use case is login is included in money transfer. If you want to get to money transfer directly, you cannot. first you have to log in. Then only you can do money transfer. Similarly, if you want to attend classes, let's say attending classes is a use case, and enrollment is another use case. The relationship is enrollment is included in attending classes use case because you first have to enroll, otherwise you cannot attend classes. So includes means whenever a basic path is called each time, then that other use case may be executed. What about extend relationship? One use case may typically lead to another use case. So after the completion of this class, other use case is creation of resume and then marketing. Not everybody will create a resume because some may already have a resume, some may already have a job, some may not want a job, some may have joined this program just for knowledge, some may have joined this program to gain some certification, some may join this program to just get some experience, practical experience. So not everybody will create a resume, but if there is a use case that is led to another use case, it is called as extend relationship. It is called as extend relationship. Typically, this is also called as exceptional conditions. So in this case, you don't have a registered ID. You don't have a registered ID. Okay. So let me try again one more time. Okay, maybe it's not working. So anyway, because a user ID is not registered, it will ask the users to click on this so that you can go to another use case. So here there is none. There is nothing that is included as part of login function. What is the priority? High. What is the frequency of use? Every time a user wants to access their inbox, they have to log in. Are there any business rules? Yes. What are these business rules? Number one, account should be locked for a period of how many hours? 48 hours. That's a business rule. Security code should be generated after 5 failed attempts. See, for Naveen mail it's 5. For there's another mail called readitmail.com. It will generate in 3 failure attempts. Okay, I'm just saying it. I don't know if it's 3 or 5 or 10, whatever. Some other applications will generate only after the first attempt. Account should be locked after 20 failed attempts. Right? Is there any other business rule that governs this login functionality? Security code generated should be at least 5 characters long. Okay. Are there any special requirements? Okay, what are these special requirements? Special requirements are like your non-functional requirements. For example, password should not be displayed. Password should not be copyable. Can you copy this password? Let's say I click this. Right click. Copy. Let's say I right click. Copy. And then what is it happening? See? It is still displaying as dots. I'm not able to copy the text. So you cannot copy the password. Are there any other special requirements that you can think of? Authentication. Some of your non-functional requirements will come in this page. Shall occur in less than 5 or 10 seconds. Okay. Are there any assumptions? None. Notes and issues? None. See, in your SRS, you just wrote one line. The system shall enable the user to log in using a valid user ID and password. Did you cover all the scenarios? Because there is a possibility that these things can happen. So how will a developer know how the system should behave or how login functionality should behave when people enter incorrect values? Right? That is why we write use cases. That is why we write use cases. See, there you wrote just a one-line statement. Simple login itself has almost 2 pages worth of information. Or actually, not 2, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pages of information. Right? Oh, okay, what about post conditions? User shall be taken to inbox page upon successful. I mean, after login, successful login, what should happen? After the evaluation of the use case, what should happen? There is one post condition. User shall be exited out of the application if unsuccessful try. Okay, so something like that could be a post conditions, things that should happen after the completion of the use case. So anyway, this is how you would write a use case. What are the benefits of a use case? Number one, they are simple and you can reuse them. So once I write a login use case, I can modify this a little bit and then use it for other systems with just different login conditions. And also it represents a system from a user's perspective. So now how will a user access the system? So there is an interaction, there is an action, there is a response. There is an action, response. Action is user ID, user is entering user ID and then the system is validating that. Then user is entering password, system is validating that. Or after entering both, the system is validating that. And then displaying appropriate messages or taking them to inbox, whatever is appropriate. So they are simple. They will represent the system from a user's perspective. But then there are some disadvantages. What are the disadvantages of use cases? Number one, proponents of extreme programming and other code-centric methodologies will say that this is unnecessarily wasting the time. For a one-line statement like user will log in using user ID and password, you have to write 5 pages worth of content. So they say this is too document-centric. Okay. Another biggest disadvantage of use cases are nowhere in this use case does it talk about the UI. Did it tell you what the UI should be like? Does it talk about the data elements? No. You wrote 5 pages worth of information for login functionality, but does it tell you anything about the UI? What it should look like, where it should be positioned? Is it a text box, drop down, field? None. That is the biggest disadvantage. It only talks about the functionality, it only talks about the interactions, but not the user interface, but not the look and feel. Finally, some of the methodologies or some organizations, they actually overemphasize this. That is still the case today also. That's why I said, if you don't know use cases, you cannot survive, because use cases are extremely important. Every organization will have documentation, and then if they have documentation, they will be writing use cases. And then these use cases will be embedded in your SRS. What I've done is actually I've customized your SRS template. I've removed the use case section, but then there was a use case section in your SRS also originally. So you would write these use cases in your SRS. This is also part of your SRS. Okay. Having said that, that brings us to your assignment, which is to create 3 use cases and have it ready by Monday. So what are those 3 use cases? One is new user registration. New user registration. and then two other use cases that are specific to your case study. For example, let's say if Igioma is writing this use case, Igioma will have to write use cases for hospital management system, which is patient diagnosis or patient enrollment or payment, whatever it is. If Jayashree is writing use cases, then Jayashree would be writing two use cases for jayasreebook.com, which is wall functionality or sending a message functionality or chat functionality. If JP is doing this, he would write it for tax system, which is filing the tax or creating the federal and the state tax. If Lakshmi is doing it, she has to do it for her budget management system, besides new user registration. So, new user registration plus two functionalities for your case study. Okay, so each of you know what your case study is, and I would like to see those two use cases that are specific to your case. So for example, if somebody is doing a banking system, then they have to write it for a banking system, which is money transfer or bill pay or check balance. If Neha is doing it, she has to write it for Neha bidding, which is searching for products, bidding for products. If Raja is doing it for a ERP application, he has to write procurement or logistics related use cases. Did you get my point? Is everyone clear about what your assignment is? Except for new user registration, the other two functionalities, two use cases specific to your case study. Did you get it? Yes, no. If you can please acknowledge in the chat window at least, it would be great. Okay, very good. So your assignments, updated SRS datasheet and GUI are due on Tuesday, and these are due on Monday. Let's move it here. Okay. For some of you, I said that it is due on Wednesday, 7th. People like who joined late last week, like Raj Sekhar or Tejas, Mandeep and others. So are you clear with use cases? So what are the components of a use case? A use case would contain basic flow, preconditions, post conditions, triggers, alternate flow, exception flow, business rules, includes priorities, frequency of use, requirements, special requirements, any assumptions. So those are the components of use case. So I want you to fill this. You can create another table. You can create in one document. So here you have two use cases, but go ahead and add one more like this. You can make a UC number 3. And if you want to understand what each of these are, again, if you want to go back and revise the definitions, it contains all these definitions here. Okay, it contains explanations of what each of these components are. Are there any questions I can answer for you at this time pertaining to use cases?
Yeah, Naveen, I have a question. So in these use cases as well, we will be using future tense, right, for all the requirements?
Because these are, details of your requirement. So you will just say the system shall. It's a good practice.
Oh, okay. Because in some of places we have used should, so I thought if it's not mandatory or something.
Sorry?
In special requirements, you have used some statements as should. So I thought we can use.
Oh, yeah, you can say shall.
It should be future, right?
Yeah, you can have it as a shall.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this use case that you just created,
You're not audible. Can you please come closer to the microphone?
Okay. In this use case that you just made, your focus was on the login functionality. So now there are other functionalities on your case study that you didn't touch on. Does that mean that on a particular use case, you'll be talking about one functionality?
So let me understand your question. Are you asking me if you would write use cases for requirements? Is that your question?
For one requirement, yeah.
It's not for one requirement. In general, you write use cases for functionality. When you say system use case, you are describing how that functionality will be executed, how the user will interface to accomplish the functionality. In this case, login is a functionality. How is the user interacting with the system to log into the system? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in your case, you just talked about the login functionality because there are other functionalities on the navigmail.com that you didn't talk about.
You're right. So if I had to do my assignment, I'll be doing assignment for new user creation, sending an email, receiving an email, sorting the emails, creation of folders. Those are my other functionalities, right? I had to write use cases for all of that.
Included on one use cases. We should include all those functionality on one use case, like on one use case document.
Not one use case. Each of those is a separate use case.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So I see some people saying I turned in my assignment. Did you turn in 10 user stories? Was it after the class started or before the class started? Was it before? The time was before 6 p.m. PDT or 8 p.m. CDT, 9 EDT. Because when I checked that 8 Central, I did not see some of your assignments. That's why you got a delayed grade. So, did you upload before the class?
I uploaded mine before the class.
Okay. I can verify that real quick. Yes, yours was uploaded before the class. How about others?
Naveen, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Regarding the FRD and BRD.
Not FRD, FSD,
FSD,
PRD, and BRD. I told you, don't get confused.
Yeah.
I don't want FRD, I want FSD.
Yeah, FSD. You need the similarities and differences. So it's as many as we can.
Yes, as many as you can.
Okay, and regarding these 3 artifacts, you also have you showed us a template. So we need to refer to that template, or we need to fill them up, or like.
No, you have to look at those templates.
Okay.
Understand the similarities between those 3 templates and differences between those 3 templates.
Oh, okay. That's what I was asking. Thank you.
Okay. So, just because people turned it in, it was about after the class, I'll go ahead and give you a complete grade for now. Okay, but next time, please submit it before the class time. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Is everyone clear about a use case? So what is a use case? Can somebody give me a quick definition of a use case? What is a use case? So a lot of people assume that use cases and test cases are one and the same. No, 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 no. They're different. They're two separate topics. People who are not familiar, if you hear somebody saying use cases and test cases are one and the same, just know that they are not a BA candidate, or they are not into testing, or they are not into IT.
Use cases represent the discretion units of interaction between action and a system.
It represents a discrete unit of interaction between an actor and a system. Let me go ahead and give you a point for your response.
I have one previous point you told me to remind you.
Okay, I'll give you that, and I think Neha also had a point. Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? If you don't have any questions, I'd like to go ahead and ask one more question and initiate some interview-related question here. How would you control an interview? How can you see? First of all, can you as a candidate control an interview? Can you control an interview? Is that possible? As a candidate.
Yeah, you can control interview if you are really good on answering the question. If you have a complete knowledge about the subject for which you went for the interview, so then you can control the interview according to your answers.
What do you mean by controlling an interview?
During an interview, like you impress the person with your like your answers, and then according to your knowledge, they will say, okay, that guy know this, so they will ask the answer you expected. They will ask you question you expected them.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it? The
It's
last
like
part at least.
You have to make them, you should expect, I don't know how to phrase it. It's like you should know the question they are going to ask.
Okay, very good. So you can control an interview by making the interviewer ask the question that you would like to be asked. Okay, I think I would have done this demonstration before, but let me go ahead and do it again. So in an interview, you can have a situation. First of all, tell me about yourself. Then you will give your overview as discussed in our class, in our beginning classes, where there was a standard structure. And then you can say, hey, look, tell me about your recent project, or what it is that you would have done in the recent project. Then you would give that information. And then you would say, look, I captured various sets of requirements. I drafted all those requirements. And then you will talk about the various sets of requirements. But the requirements gave the functionalities and the associated supplemental aspects. But then there was something else that I also had to do to capture the flows, which were use cases. Then my question could be, what are use cases? Use case is a discrete unit of interaction between a user and a system, or between a system and a system. There are various components of a use case. Some of the components of use cases are actors, triggers, preconditions, postconditions, basic flow, alternate flow, exception flow, business rules, assumptions, relationships, priorities, and frequencies of use. But there are multiple relationships for use cases. So let's say if I stop there, what would be my next question? What do you think would be my next question if I stopped at that point? Any guesses, anyone?
Maybe what are those relationships?
What are those relationships? And I'll say there are two types of relationships. One is include relationship and extend relationship. Include relationship is when the functionality is automatically called every time the basic path is run, while extend relationship is when the functionalities or other functionalities are called when there are error conditions. And then I can give an example. I also say that, however, it is not only that we have these several artifacts, but I also did some diagrams to represent the same flow. Then what do you think my next question could be?
What are the different types of diagrams?
Excellent. I've done a variety of diagrams. Some of the diagrams that I've done are use case diagrams, activity diagrams, swim lane diagrams, and other flow diagrams. And I use a variety of tools to do those diagrams. So what is my next question?
What are those tools?
Depending on the methodology that was being employed, I use different types of tools. In my recent organization, I used Visio. Prior to that, I used Enterprise Architect. I can even do these diagrams without any tools in plain Word document, etc. But my role and my understanding was not based on tools, but I understand the concepts, and then I'll harness these tools and technologies to accomplish those concepts. As an example, I was not only involved as a business analyst in a project, but I also was involved in other capacities in different projects where I did the same exact thing. What do you think is my next question?
What were your other capacities?
The other capacities that I was involved in was some of the project management activities, some of the testing activities, some of the production support related activities. And I created a variety of artifacts in each of those capacities using those different tools. So what is my next question?
What are those tools?
For example, to create a project plan, I used MS Project. I used some of the project and portfolio management tools like Clarity, EPPM for project management activities. For testing activities, I used basic Excel sheets as well as some of the tools like Mercury Quality Center or ClearQuest, etc. So what is my next question? Huh? Any guesses? My next question is, any guesses? Anybody? When can you start the job from? Right? Are you ready to start the job from coming Monday, or when will you be ready? Anyway, so my point is, you should be in a position to control the interview. And how can you do that? Number one, by being thorough with the concept. Right? By being thorough with the concept. Number two, by not just focusing on one item. See, you should take that initiative. You should take the lead. In my demonstration now, I went ahead and talked about other concepts, other topics that were not part of the question, because I want to lead that conversation. And then you are just following along, asking me questions, right? So be thorough with all these concepts and have an example for each of these concepts. Examples are very critical. Examples are very critical. And then you will be successful. Are there any questions that I can answer for you at this time? If you don't have any questions, thank you for your participation tonight. We will reconvene back again on Monday, August 5th at 6 Pacific, 8 Central, 9 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you and have a good weekend ahead.